Welcome, I'm Dr. Leslie Koren. Welcome to the course, Nutrition and Integrative Medicine for Mental Health. I'm going to teach you the state-of-the-art, evidence-based clinical interventions for incorporating nutritional therapies, dietary and culinary medicine, and a variety of what we call integrative medicine methods into your practice. So enjoy the process. We will have a number of hours ahead of us, along with complimentary handouts and, of course, my textbooks. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My PhD is in behavioral medicine. I have a specialization in traditional indigenous medicine. You see here on this slide a picture of the jungle where I arrived at the age of 20 and got sick with absolutely everything there was to get sick with, and thus launched my path in natural healing. There were no doctors, no roads, no electricity, very little running water, and I was left to my own devices, along with the local indigenous healers, to learn about how to stay healthy naturally. I had previously been introduced to meditation and yoga as a young student in Boston, where I'm from, and I brought these skills with me in the jungle. I began a school for children, and then from there, my own experience and intellectual interest took me into the development of a natural medicine health center, which I ran for over 25 years in the jungle. You'll see here a photo of me doing some cranial sacral work and polarity therapy. This was my first integrative method that I practiced, and I have a practice not only in body work, but body-oriented psychotherapy, and I'm going to explore one of these modules with you in this training. Even if you are not going to touch your patients or do energetic-based work, knowing about the value, the application, the stage-based interventions of all of these methods is going to enhance your practice as you build skills as an expert in these areas for your clients and for your own students. After the first 10 years in the jungle, I decided to return to the jungle of Boston to enhance my own clinical and public health training. I trained in public health at the Harvard School of Public Health, and from there did my clinical training in psychodynamic psychotherapy and behavioral medicine, also post-trauma therapy at Cambridge Hospital. So I was there not only learning conventional psychotherapeutic interventions, but at that time began to develop my concepts of body-oriented psychotherapy, how the body tells the story that the mind cannot find words to share. And so while I was there, I introduced body work into community mental health at Cambridge Hospital. From there, I returned to Mexico, returned to my clinic, and spent another 10 years there. I've been in private practice in Boston and in rural Mexico, and currently, not only do I teach for Capella University in the mental health licensure program, I taught for many years for Lesley University in their licensure program for mental health counselors. But I also serve as the research director at the Center for World Indigenous Studies. This is a nonprofit, native-run organization, and my area of interest there is in the application of traditional medicine and the revitalization of authentic indigenous food systems supporting tribal communities throughout the world. So I'll share more about that with you, and as you'll see as we proceed through our course, there'll always be a current of cultural competency, because I so value the intersection of understanding culture and identity as it influences our choices over our own health and supporting the health of our very diverse clientele. Let's begin with some terms of reference. Complementary alternative medicine and complementary in integrative health. These are current terms of reference, particularly used by the National Institutes of Health. If a practice is used together with conventional medicine, it's complementary. If a practice is used instead of conventional medicine, it's alternative. Integrative suggests that we're integrating conventional approaches with complementary alternative methods. Naturopathy is an area that will find many resources, and much of what I'll share with you comes out of naturopathic mental health. Naturopathic physicians are licensed through many states in the United States to practice primary health care, and naturopathic physicians will be a very good resource for you as you explore natural medicine, nutritional medicine, and integrative medicine for your client's benefit. Naturopaths are both licensed to practice primary health care. There's also a term called traditional naturopath. They are not licensed, but many states allow the practice of naturopathic methods. Functional medicine is another term that you'll hear quite a bit. There are many licensed physicians and nurses, nutritional therapists, dietitians that practice functional medicine, which is rooted in biology-based approaches. It explores the root causes. And throughout our course here, we're going to explore not only symptoms and how we help our clients feel better, but also what are some of the latest ideas and theories and proven concepts about what's contributing to poor mental health. My goal is to help you expand your understanding of what contributes to poor mental health beyond what we understand in psychodynamic theory and concepts of trauma. As a traumatologist, as someone with a primary lens of post-trauma therapy, I understand well, and you'll hear from me quite a bit, about the role of adverse health events in childhood and the experience of complex trauma and its contribution to chronic mental and physical health problems. Indeed, that's the focus of my practice. And my clinical practice also focuses on helping people get off of medications, particularly pharmaceutical medications. So this is an area that we'll focus on throughout this training, is understanding the mind-body connection and the implications of cause and effect. Integrative medicine for mental health refers to the integration of conventional biomedical methods with complementary, alternative, and functional. And here you see an image that suggests the relationship among these many approaches. In integrative medicine for mental health, we explore a whole body approach. We conduct a whole self-assessment, and I'm going to teach you how to do that in an ensuing module. We draw on interdisciplinary fields of study and clinical practice. We collaborate across disciplines. We employ dietary interventions, understanding the very profound role that diet has on physical and mental well-being. We use laboratory analysis and also the new science of genomics and the effects of gene and epigenetic effects of diet and environmental exposures on our physical and mental well-being, and understanding the ways that we can alter those vulnerabilities through active measures. We certainly emphasize self-care, and this course will be filled with self-care methods to teach your client and also to practice on yourself. And of course, we emphasize the healing relationship. I believe in the power of the connection and the healing relationship between the clinician and the client, and also the empowerment of the client to overcome a sense of helplessness or the sense that they can't be in charge and be in control of their mental and physical activities and well-being. Integrative medicine for mental health explores nutritional deficiencies, For example, a deficiency in vitamin B12 can lead to cognitive decline. Therefore, enhancing B12 supplementation is going to improve cognitive function. We see this especially in vulnerable groups such as elders who may be deficient in B12-rich proteins, or vegetarians and vegans who may not be getting enough B12, which is found only in animal proteins, or supplementation. We'll look at magnesium deficiency, a very common deficiency among people. It contributes to anxiety, hyperventilation, and also we know we treat asthma with magnesium, hence the connection between asthma, anxiety as well. So I'm going to walk you through a variety of ways of looking at the body-mind connection and understanding how physical and emotional symptoms are always interconnected, and we're going to maximize the way we can help bring the body into balance. We're not going to treat symptoms as much as we are going to support the whole self to move toward the healing process and understand how everyone is an individual. We're not going to treat dis-ease. We're going to support individual health and healing. Integrative medicine also looks at drug interactions on nutritional status. For example, there are many medications that can cause a decrease or a deficit in nutrients that will in turn affect mental well-being. Antipsychotic drugs and some antidepressants can cause metabolic syndrome and contribute to inflammatory process. We know that chronic illness is depressing, and depression can exacerbate and contribute to chronic illness. We know, for example, that statins, which are used quite a bit across populations in the United States to decrease cholesterol levels, deplete the body of coenzyme Q10, which is essential for mitochondrial function, the little engines in our cells that are responsible for energy. And we know that the depletion of this special nutrient can also exacerbate heart problems. And so if we have clients with fibromyalgia, for example, who are on statins, we should look at the role of CoQ10 status and supplementation. There are a variety of medications that influence nutrient status that in turn affect physical and mental well-being. I'm going to share with you some databases that you can use to analyze these potential contributions and deficits and how they can be balanced. I'm certainly going to share with you a lot about alternatives to pharmaceuticals and how to optimize nutrition. One of the most important things I'll share with you is that there's no one right diet for everyone. And understanding the individual, which is what we already do in mental health, is going to inform our work with the whole person assessment. Understanding food allergies and food sensitivities, for example, the effects of gluten on depression and psychosis. I know we've got a big anti-gluten brigade in the United States and even around the world right now. We also have a bit of a backlash and a lot of controversy. I'm going to walk you through that controversy and teach you what you need to know and what the scientific literature says about when someone is sensitive to gluten and the significant effects it has on neurological function. Looking at the idea of infections, toxicities, genetic disorders. We know, for example, there's new research that looks at the effect of mold exposure on cognitive decline and is now being considered another source of Alzheimer's disease. Understanding an individual's unique genetic and biochemical and nutritional status is going to take us deeply into understanding that there's no one right approach for everyone, that understanding the range of options will maximize the benefits. And of course, I'm going to show you how to develop an individualized protocol and treatment plan using a variety of methods. Indeed, if you look here at the Rainbow Blueprint, this is a concept I've developed that represent all the colors of the rainbow, representing all the wonderful colors of foods that are going to benefit our health. But as you see here, I walk you through bioindividuality at the top. That perhaps is our guiding theme in understanding that it's the individual and the individual's biochemistry that we're going to work with, not of the latest fad, not the latest scientific research, but really understanding the range of differences among people. For example, I work with clients in the northern climes in Alaska, the Inuit people, for example, who thrive on a diet rich with fat and low in carbohydrates. And if I were to suggest that someone become a vegetarian, that person might just topple over and die as a result of it. Their bodies, just like our cars are meant to process a certain kind of fuel, so are our bodies meant to process according to our biochemical uniqueness. And people who've evolved biochemically and genetically in the climes of Alaska and the Arctic Circle live on lots of good fat, some proteins, and of course then very low carbs that will sprout up in the summer. Contrast that, for example, with my clients from India who are natural vegetarians, who are omnivores, who have certain amounts of animal protein, but who do very well with grains and legumes and a range of fruits and vegetables that are going to fuel their biochemistry. And all of us come from a place in the world, even if we have immigrated 1, 2, 5, 10 generations ago to the current place we call home, we carry the genetic blueprint of the influences of how we evolved and the locale and environment that nourished us. And I will suggest to you when we study this in the module that you will explore for yourself what ratios of foods are going to be biochemically individualized for you. That's going to make your engine hum, just like putting the right octane in your car will either cause it to hum or the wrong octane will cause it to sputter along. I'm going to teach you integrative assessment, how to assess mind and body. And if you are trained in mental health, it's unlikely you've trained in how to assess physical health and nutritional status. And I'm going to walk you through how to do that in a way that's appropriate to your competency level as well as your clinical licensure and certification. Balancing biological rhythms is one of the core approaches I'm going to share with you. Understanding the role of circadian rhythm, our 24-hour sleep-wake cycle, along with ultradian rhythm, our 90 to 120-minute brain hemispheric dominance. This will inform our work in the successful treatment of bipolar, of seasonal affective disorder, depression, OCD, ADHD, and certainly post-traumatic stress disorder. Our rhythms become disrupted, and disrupted rhythms in turn affect our mental and cognitive function. So this will be a core theme throughout our training. Likewise, ultradian rhythm underlies much of what we do in pranayama, yogic breathing, and also in understanding our natural rest-wake cycle throughout the day. While we adhere to a very modern cycle of pushing us and working throughout the day without resting, there is a lot of wisdom in traditional societies who take a siesta or a break to let the right and the left hemisphere relax and to restore the creativity of the brain. while we ignore this oftentimes in modern society, there's a biological basis for this that I'll share with you. And I'll share with you some techniques about how to educate your clients to improve their rest-wake cycle and therefore improve their mood. Nature will be an ongoing theme of what we discuss. So much of what I'll share with you is about the wisdom of nature and how nature provides us with means to bring about balance to our mind, body, and spirit. The human and animal relationship is central to what we do. I won't explore that too much, but let's not forget the value of both relationships with our two-legged friends and our four-legged friends as well. Culinary medicine will be one of our most important and our largest modules. I'm going to teach you how to not only cook for emotional health and mental health, but also how to understand the role of foods and how to, once we understand the foods that will benefit our health, how to help our clients adhere and make these behavioral changes. And this is one of the most important things we can do in mental health and well-being. Is it's not enough to just know what to do, but even our nutritional colleagues have challenges getting their clients to adhere to a new program. And I think this speaks to also what we understand about ourselves, that we may always know what we should be doing, but getting ourselves to do it is another matter. And this is where we'll bring motivational interviewing and understanding psychological methods that increase adherence and increase compliance with a program that we know will be good for our health and well-being. This training will be without ideology, and we will explore and expand the range of scientific knowledge as well as theory. And I'm going to share with you a lot of good recipes and tricks for making delicious, quick meals. Supplementation is a big topic that we'll discover. Many people are supplementing based on what they read on the internet or what a friend will tell them, or perhaps they've read in a book. But are those supplements helpful? Are they overdosing? Are they combining supplements that are having adverse side effects because they're being combined with pharmaceuticals designed to have the same effect? I'm going to teach you the science and the evidence behind supplementation for mental health. And toward the end of this training, I'm going to show you how to help someone reduce or even eliminate pharmaceuticals that they may wish to reduce or eliminate. Herbal medicine will be part of that process as well. Herbs are plant substances that have lots of chemicals in them that alter states of consciousness psychoactively. I'm going to share with you the science and the research of those herbal medicines and not give you every herbal medicine that's out there, but the ones that have the best evidence and that I found most successful in the use in my clinical practice over more than 40 years. Hydrotherapy and detoxification is an essential part of our work. Hydrotherapy was used until very recently in some of our most famous mental asylum. And what you'll discover as you learn these different methods is many of these methods work. It's not that they stopped being used because they don't work. They often take time. They're labor intensive. You need someone that can share with you how to use these methods. And they often don't work as quickly. But one of the principles of natural approaches and complementary approaches is that while these methods may take a little longer to work, they're often without the adverse side effects of some of the more powerful treatment interventions. And so one of the things I educate my clients about is slow and steady, making slow, incremental change so that the body-mind can absorb these changes through its natural capacity for change without feeling overwhelmed, but also without hitting the body with a hammer. And you may get some change in one part, but you get a bruise in another. And so this is another major theme to keep in mind. Nature works slowly, but perhaps more surely. Hormones, I'll touch on hormones a little bit. It is beyond the scope to go into an in-depth analysis of the role of hormones, particularly biochemical hormones for mental health. But we will discuss them during one of our modules. And I think they're an essential part of understanding mental health, beginning generally by the age of 35, 38, 40 years old. Exercise. I think often if our clients got an hour of aerobic exercise every day, we'd be out of business as psychotherapists. So important and so useful is exercise for mental health and well-being. We know that exercise is so central to cognitive function. It certainly reduces risk factor for cognitive decline. Exercise is a mood booster. It alters so much chemistry in the body. And I'm going to teach you all the different types of exercises, from aerobic to anaerobic, yoga, and we'll explore some of the research and also, most importantly, a stage approach to what exercises work best and when and for whom, so that you can target your interventions in the office ever more effectively. I've mentioned somatics and body work is a favorite topic of mine, and I think adding a body somatic component to our work is going to increase the efficacy of the outcomes, even if we are not touching patients. And I don't suggest that you do if you are not licensed and certified to do so. Knowing the value of different kinds of therapies and when and to whom to refer is going to enhance your clinical practice and build your identity as an integrative medicine for mental health practitioner. We'll explore breath work and different types of breathing, particularly for anxiety and management of mood. Spirituality is central to our work. I will not explore too in-depth, except as we explore the role of cultural competency and the role of what are called entheogens, our next topic, in altered states, and the role of psychoactive medicines in altering consciousness, in helping people reconnect with their spiritual well-being in times when they have lost hope or lost connection to the greater picture and their greater purpose and meaning in life. And finally, we'll explore adherence strategies. It's not enough to know what to do, it's how do we do it? How do we do it for ourselves as clinicians? How do we prevent our own burnout? And then how do we tune in to what our clients need in order to be successful in carrying out change in their own lives? So this is the basis for the Brainbow Blueprint that I'll teach you. And here I've broken down in this slide integrative mental health methods in this course. The integrative assessment will look at diet, nutrients, botanicals, and glandulars, an often missed intervention that is available in dehydrated form that supports different parts of the organs, the brain, the hypothalamus, the thymus, the heart, all organs that are affected by chronic exposure to stress and trauma. Metabolic typing, the concept that we are all biochemically individual. How to understand whether you're affected by being from India or from Ireland, or if your heritage combines people from Germany and Ireland, or from the northern climes or from the tropics. How do I know what my body needs for fuel? We'll explore that. In the next module, I want to touch on culture, ethnicity, and integrative health, and how understanding these methods makes us culturally competent. We're going to be working with a diverse population of people who may be migrating from all over the world, or maybe first, second, third generation immigrants who have belief systems and practices that we want to enhance, we want to know about, we want to support in terms of adherence where we bring in the important role of cultural identity and health. I've mentioned biochemical hormones. We'll explore the role of neurotransmitters and how they're produced in the gut and how to enhance nutrition to support brain health by supporting the second brain in the gut. And we'll explore the role of amino acids and how we can use those to do that. Bodywork therapies, I'll talk about acupuncture and other neurotherapies like neurofeedback and how these methods complement but also address the isomorphic needs of our clients to choose a variety of pathways to self-regulation. Exercise, hydrotherapies, detoxification strategies. Detox is a big buzzword these days. I'm going to teach you the art and the science and begin to support you in doing some detox strategies. This is perhaps another major central theme I want to reinforce. We want to practice these methods ourselves. We want to learn them from the inside out, just like we would not do psychotherapy without having gone through psychotherapy or counseling ourselves. We don't want to suggest someone go running unless we have done some running or been on the treadmill. We want to use these methods ourselves. We know the challenges of them from the inside out. We'll know the benefits. This makes us someone who then is an authority from the inside out experientially with our clients. Spirituality, altered states, because so much of my work is focused on the treatment of complex trauma and PTSD, which is essentially being in an altered state, being dissociated. I want to share with you how to bring control to the dissociative process. Indeed, understanding the role of trance states and how we self-regulate and gain control and come back into the body and therefore have more control over our moods and our presence with ourselves and others. I'll show you drug nutrient herb interaction databases and analysis so that you can understand how these interactions occur and the benefits or the potential deficits and contraindications to look out for. I'll review testing and labs and understanding eligibility for lab testing and what it tells us. And then, of course, compliance, resources, and next steps for training. Integrative medicine for mental health enhances our work by learning from other disciplines. The concept of somatization, as we bring the body into this study, is a concept that we just throw out the window. It's an old-fashioned concept that suggests there's a divide between the mind and the body. Increasingly, we understand the intricate connection between the mind and the body and how one reflects the other. And an intervention with one is going to be an intervention with the whole system. Everything is psycho and everything is somatic. We're going to do an integrative mind-body assessment. I'm going to teach you right off the bat how to conduct a psychoeducational food mood assessment along with recommendations. No matter what your licensure or certification, this will be in your scope of practice as a psychoeducational intervention. And we're going to build on skills and integrate methods that enhance clients' self-care strategies so that you'll have methods to send clients home to practice or teach them in the office and help practice also in a group. I want to share with you concepts for doing this work in a group setting as well. I think it's very well suited to running group psycho-ed integrative medicine for mental health. Hopefully, one of the outcomes will be to accelerate your clinical results. You're going to understand how the mind-body works together, how to help your clients make very simple dietary changes, incorporating what I call the principle of substitutions. I've never had a client say to me, "Oh no, I don't want to use butter," when I say, Dump that canola oil, get yourself some nice raw butter. How does that feel? There's no protest. So we're going to help our clients identify foods and nutrients that are going to be a painless transition into improving their mental health. Indeed, one of the first things our clients can do is get rid of those toxic oils, the canola oil, the corn oil, the safflower oil, and start using good raw butter, olive oil, avocado oil, for example. And these are easy transitions that will build a sense of efficacy and start reducing the inflammatory process in the body, which indeed will start reducing depression. I'm going to teach you how to educate your clients about their psychobiological rhythms and methods to regulate them. And there's so many ways to do this, both botanically, through nutrients, through foods, and through how we time even when we eat food. And how do we help our client get the body moving? And how do we help inspire their change? One of the main themes we'll explore is the role of stress as the underlying factor that leads to inflammation in the body, which in turn contributes to depression and pain and self-medication. Many of us are working with people who have challenges with self-medication, alcohol, drug abuse, overuse of pharmaceuticals that alter mood. Let's track backwards to where the pain began, where the depression began, in inflammatory process, in the effects of chronic stress, in altering the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and its ability to tamp down inflammation in the body. This is the newest science of depression. And there are so many very important interventions we can use with the body that are going to complement what we're already doing for the mind. I'd like to share with you some of the research that the federal government has conducted on the 10 most common complementary health approaches used among adults. If you look here, the most commonly used are natural products. This involves supplementation and botanical products, almost 18%. Deep breathing is practiced by almost 11%. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, 10%. Chiropractic and osteopathic manipulation, meditation, massage. Almost 7% of the population practices massage. Special diets, homeopathy, progressive relaxation, and guided imagery. There's a great deal of research going on exploring the use of these methods. And what's so important that we'll explore during the assessment process is asking our clients what they're doing. We know that almost 65% of the US population is using some form of complementary or alternative medicine. However, only 35% of that population is telling us about it in the clinical setting. I would hypothesize it's because people are concerned about what we might think about what they're doing, or perhaps because we're not asking about it, they don't think to share. The assessment that I've created that I'm going to share with you for your own use, and that you're welcome to adapt for your own use, includes those questions. And indeed, as we explore the cultural formulation of the DSM-5, we understand that the DSM-5 values also asking people about what practices, whether they're traditional indigenous practices, traditional and cultural practices, energetic, herbal, nutritional, Reiki, whatever it is people are using. We want to ask people and let them know we're going to support their methods. We want to know about them so we can help them be efficacious. This leads us into understanding the intersection of culture, ethnicity, and complementary alternative methods, also called CAM for short. For example, we're going to explore some Ayurvedic traditional medicine, Asian traditional medicine, also known in the United States, practiced as Chinese medicine and acupuncture, but there are many forms of acupuncture coming out of Japan. Tends to be a little bit lighter in terms of needle insertion. Knowing that is going to help us make an appropriate referral for someone who may be skittish or concerned about the invasiveness of a needle. Understanding these nuances of cultural practices will make us more competent. There's Southeast Asian and Vietnamese practices. Indeed, wonderful, healthful foods and greens and herbs can be found at your local Vietnamese, not only restaurants, but food stores. Mexican and South American curanderismo. My own influence, having lived and worked in Mexico for over 40 years, I've been exposed a great deal to the practice of curanderismo. You hear the word curar, to cure. And curanderismo is a syncretic combination of both European medicine that was brought over during contact in the 15th century, along with traditional indigenous practices. And these are relevant also anywhere where Mexican origin population live in the United States, because I guarantee you there are curanderos practicing and carrying out rituals. I want to know if my client is seeing a curandero. I want to help bring together the whole treatment integrative process so that it helps my client feel more integrated in her or his approach to her self-care and not feel like she has to keep secrets about her practice. So I have a particular interest in this area, but you may find where you live, exploring the diverse populations where you live will explore also the diverse methods that are being practiced in those regions. African, Afro-Cuban, Afro-Brazilian, Yoruban practices are going on all over the United States as well. I want to know if my client's engaging and finding benefit in these practices. How can we explore these methods to help her or him feel even more healthy? And then, of course, there are multiple indigenous methods and what are called pan-Indian methods. These are methods, for example, we see quite commonly the use of sweat lodges. The eminent psychologist John Wilson pioneered the use of the native sweat lodge along with Lakota help, where the sweat lodge generally originates among the plains communities, with men returning from Vietnam who are suffering from PTSD. And I encourage you to read Dr. Wilson's work because it's a brilliant reimagining of a traditional indigenous system used appropriately with approval by the people whose cultural practices they are to help Vietnam veterans. And so understanding these syncretic methods and understanding the knowledge that indigenous peoples bring through their own practices. And we'll explore that further, especially when we look at the use of entheogens. And of course, complementary alternative medicine intersects indigenous and European traditions. And those of you of European heritage, don't forget your own indigenous European practices. We tend to think that those of us of European heritage who've left Europe however many generations ago, that we've left our practices behind. Pick them up, find them out, explore them, maintain them, retain them. There's lots of wisdom in where our cultural heritage has to share about foods, herbs, and rituals for not only our individual well-being, but our community well-being. CAM intersects cultural and sacred practices. This is where we extend into the spiritual realm, and also understanding that many traditional cultural rituals have been secularized in order to make them palatable, in order to apply them in modern mental health. I think perhaps the best example of this is Vipassana meditation, which has transmuted into mindfulness in all of its varied forms. While much of Vipassana and mindfulness, which is Buddha-informed, continues to be practiced, much of it has been denuded of its religious or spiritual significance, metaphor, imagery, and the essence of the practice is now being used. And we see this, for example, if you haven't yet seen the Dhamma Brothers video, I encourage you to look at this beautiful story about the integration of Vipassana into the use of maximum security prison work with incarcerated individuals. And it's a beautiful story about the application of Vipassana with individuals for self-regulation. But we also see variations on this. We see people who practice yoga that's adapted for Christians who don't want Hindu imagery or Hindu metaphors, who use Christian metaphors. Culture is always dynamic. It's always changing. We're always meeting up. We're always influencing each other, and we're always creating new methods and new rituals. EMDR, for example, is a practice we use widely now in the treatment of trauma and other psychosomatic diseases. However, EMDR practices are found to originate in Tibetan meditation, and the use of the crossing of the eyes and the effects on the ocular reflex in the body and the brain, and how that is going to affect right and left hemisphere and mood and memory. Vision quests, traditional among indigenous peoples worldwide. A colleague the other day said that her graduating daughter from high school was going on a vision quest as part of a graduation ritual. Sweat lodges, I've mentioned, soul collage. If you're not familiar with this wonderful expressive therapy technique, it's a way in which you gather lots of magazines and lots of images, and you create cards that reflect images of nodal experiences, nodal beliefs like home, family, travel, career, spirit, soul, animal guides, whatever it might be that represents an important theme in your life. And I've done this with both groups and individuals, and it's a wonderful artistic approach, particularly effective with adolescents who don't want to talk too much, to create these cards of images that tell a story about the innermost yearnings, the innermost beliefs, the losses, the obstacles in life. So the role of CAM as it intersects culture and sacred practices is central to our work as culturally competent integrative mental health practitioners. And continuing on with this exploration of culture-based methods and how they intersect ritual and spirituality, this is where we move into altered states of consciousness, the role of ritual, shamanism and pan-shamanism, the use of psychotropic herbs. And we'll explore in one of our final segments the role of entheogens. Entheogen, meaning God within, finding the divine within. The role of nature's chemicals and how they're now being used in entheogen or psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. Now, this has gone on for millennia among our ancestors, but certainly more recently since the discovery of LSD in the 1950s and the use of psilocybin mushrooms discovered by Dr. Wasson, being used traditionally by indigenous peoples in Mexico. So We'll explore psilocybin LSD-assisted psychotherapy for PTSD and the scientific evidence and clinical approaches to that. The use of peyote by the Native American Church is a cultural ritual that's a syncretic ritual that is used often to help people decrease and eliminate the use of substances and drugs and alcohol that are affecting their lives adversely. Ketamine-assisted therapy for depression and pain, MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for PTSD, ayahuasca-assisted therapy, the use of this divine plant, both used in Brazil but also now throughout the world. And we'll also explore an understanding of the difference between recreational, substance abuse, and therapeutic abuse. And we'll understand also the brain chemistry and how these molecules, what Dr. Strassman calls the spirit molecule of MDMA or DMT, target the brain and target the spiritual self. And then finally, we'll explore in depth psychedelic medicine for palliative care and medical marijuana, understanding the role of medical marijuana in our clients' lives and its benefits or potential contraindications. So what are our principles of effective treatment? Certainly the first must be that it's isomorphic to our individual's belief system. If we have a client who doesn't believe in meditation, it's not going to be isomorphic to suggest meditation. I had a client like this not long ago who was an engineer. And after sitting and talking with her, she was very stressed. I thought, you know, you would really benefit from some mindfulness. And then I thought she just wasn't going to go for that. And so I suggested neurofeedback. I thought she would love to gain self-regulation through watching her brain waves on the screen being all hooked up to electrodes. And so understanding what our clients will respond to in this whole area is going to enhance efficacy. I've mentioned biochemical individuality, which will inform our choices of culinary medicine and nutritional supplementation. I'm going to identify the psychobiological substitutions for self-medicating behaviors. People self-medicate not only for emotional reasons, but because their brain is craving something. Let's give their brain what they need, but let's do it with something that's healthier and doesn't have the adverse side effects. I believe in doing what will affect change first. We need to give our clients hope and help right off the bat when they meet with us. So let's identify what's going to give them the best improvement first off. Plan for the obstacles. This approach is not for everyone. It takes time, persistence, and patience. But understanding that there are going to be plateaus or relapses is just part of this process. Identify adherence strategies. I want to know what's going to help my clients succeed. And this often involves bringing in the whole family. I find that my clients who have a partner or family members on board with their program, indeed, it's a whole family health program, do better than those that are fighting an uphill battle or being ridiculed or scoffed at. So this often calls us to do family work at this stage as well. And then understanding that we all habituate to certain changes. If you've been on the treadmill or on the bike, you know that you have to keep raising the angle of the treadmill, or you have to increase the speed at which you're working because you reach your goal and you have to keep pushing. And we do habituate to all of these interventions. We habituate to many pharmaceuticals, particularly the psychotropics, which is often why they stop working, even when they do work. So it's important to understand that we'll be changing what we do every 3 to 6 months and augmenting it, adding in some things, taking away some things. And remember the rainbow blueprint. We may intervene at any stage that's isomorphic to what the client says she or he is ready to begin. Clinical applications. These approaches that I will share with you are especially ideal for our complex patients. They're certainly to be used for prevention, but when we're working with someone who has complex physical and emotional challenges, this is where these methods shine. They all synergize change. They are beneficial where we intersect with depression, self-care, and chronic disease management. Many of our clients have diabetes type 2, and in mental health, we don't often work with that, except we know that compliance and adherence to the often rigorous self-care routines is difficult. We can bring our understanding of adherence strategies to this, but we can also enhance blood sugar, glucose handling, which is intimately involved with mood and depression, by enhancing nutrition. And we can collaborate with other prescribers or primary providers. So there's a lot of rich intersection around mental and physical chronic disease management. There are often acute responses that don't warrant emergency intervention, but that can respond to these kinds of self-care methods. Our assessments and interventions will address root causes, so we will dig deep into physical and emotional history. We can enhance substance abuse recovery. Indeed, I would suggest that one of the reasons substance abuse treatment outcomes is so poor is because we have the missing piece right here. Culinary medicine, herbal medicine, nutritional supplementation, exercise is often not part of the treatment model. If you look at some of the foods that are served in inpatient, people are asked to get off alcohol, which is primarily a physiological addiction to sugar, and they're fed Jell-O and sweet puddings for dessert, and sweet potatoes or mashed potatoes and peas and gravy, all of these things that just keep that liver's addiction and the blood glucose addiction to sugar at a peak, making it so difficult despite the effort and the will to make these changes. And so what I'm going to explore with you will have profound benefits for recovery from all of the substances that our clients are wanting to eliminate. And then finally, pain management. I will share with you some very potent and effective approaches to the management of acute and chronic pain. One of the most important clinical actions that you can take with a client who's depressed is to identify and begin to reduce the stressors that are contributing to the inflammatory process in the body, which often underlies depression and hence often leads to self-medication, prescribed or otherwise. We know that stress alters the capacity of the body to tamp down inflammation. And inflammation is really a natural part of living. We're going to stub our toe and have it become inflamed. But the nature of inflammation in the body that often occurs as a result of stress is that our adrenal glands and our natural tamping down mechanism in the body of the hormones becomes altered and really overused because of the exposure to stress. And it affects brain chemicals as well. And increases what are called cytokines. And so these inflammatory chemicals lead to what's been thought of or spoken of as almost a low-level fire, a low-level burn in the body. Now, this has broad implications, not just for depression, but also for heart disease and even for cognitive decline. Indeed, there's a new concept of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease called diabetes type 3, because it's well understood now that this chronic inflammation in the body leads to a whole host of physical as well as emotional outcomes. Diabetes, depression, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's. And so if we can go to the root cause, as we often do in mental health, of reducing stress, enhancing resilience, and therefore reduce inflammation, we're going to have a complementary action to all the work we're doing with CBT or solution-focused or post-trauma work. And this is one of the most important initial interventions to think about. How can I help my client reduce the inflammatory process in their lives? And I've given you here a wonderful image of the role of chronic low-grade inflammation, how it can trigger epigenetic effects, how it can trigger constitutional vulnerabilities, how it exacerbates and increases the aging process, and how lifestyle is certainly going to counteract that, and how we can support a client mainly through stress reduction and culinary herbal detoxification interventions. The other important clinical action to consider right at the start is how to enhance the microbiome. Here's a picture of the intestines, indeed the large intestine in particular, but we also see the small intestine contained within that. And we know that there's a bidirectional effect of digestion and mood. If you can improve digestion, you can improve mood. As mood improves, you improve digestion. And in the digestion module, I will share with you the very complex interventions and the relationships. For example, we know that there's a high rate of GERD among people with PTSD. There's a high rate of indigestion, and this makes a lot of sense because digestion requires parasympathetic dominance. It requires a state of relaxation. And so if you are not in a relaxed state when you're eating, then the digestive juices and all of the natural process of moving food through and into the microbiome, the digestive process of the intestines and the elimination, is going to be altered adversely. And so altering the microbiome can be as simple as adding fermented foods into your diet or taking probiotic supplements. And we know that this has a very profound effect on reducing anxiety. I love this cartoon called The Mind-Body Problem. Here's the mind up in the head, the brain, saying, get up and exercise, get up and move, and lower down into the body, no, not going to. And this is the challenge we all face. Get up, no. And this is our challenge, particularly in mental health, and any of us that are working with clients. How do we motivate? How do we support? How do we coach adherence? Motivating for change and adhering to the program. We're going to use CBT methods, motivational interviewing, post-trauma, stage-based recovery. For example, I really, in my own practice, have found it beneficial to consider Dr. Herman's three-stage model of recovery of self-care and safety, exploration of the trauma and its meaning, telling the story, finding words, finding the methods, whether it's done through verbal or somatic expression, creative expression, to tell that trauma story, make meaning of it, and then in the third stage, the resolution of that and moving beyond it, really the wounded healer, identifying how the suffering has led to growth, the post-traumatic growth. And so understanding what methods and interventions to apply, exercise, nutritional interventions, neurofeedback, at what stage is going to be essential for efficacy. Decreasing dissociation, I think, is central to what we do. This is where the hydrotherapies, skin brushing, which I'll teach you, exercise, but certain types of exercise. For example, I find that anaerobic exercise reduces dissociation, whereas aerobic exercise can increase it. Things like weights and holding weights in the hands in front of a mirror can help improve body image, decrease dissociation, whereas getting the runner's high can often increase it at a time when maybe the task is to come back into the body and be centered. So understanding the nuances of these approaches and then their application to the individual will enhance adherence. Certainly, I think one of our goals is to reduce negative self-medicating behaviors and the addictions. And I think we do take on a role of health coaching at times, where we're boosting, we're cheerleading, we're finding ways to help our clients adhere to the program that they wish. And if we don't, we may collaborate with a health coach. It's an up-and-coming discipline where there's a variety of trainings throughout the country. I certainly want to set goals and priorities with my clients. We set them together and we assess them periodically. I want to engage family, friends, and the social groups to enhance adherence. And I mentioned earlier, the benefits of mind-body groups in this work is tremendous. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to conduct mind-body groups for Kaiser in California. And we know the role of bringing people together that have similar goals and tasks, similar obstacles, to come together and share their challenges and share their triumphs, and to learn these methods together. The idea of running a 90-minute, 12-week rotating group with 6 to 8, I think 8 is about maximum people, could be all women, could be men, it could be a mixed group, where part of the group is group therapy, part of the group is learning some of these methods and practicing them, going home and reporting in on homework, asking questions, is a very vital part of our work and a very effective part as well. We have tremendous opportunities to develop a niche practice. This is the revolution in healthcare right now. It's the revolution in mental health. We're bringing the body into mental health, and I think that's what is creating the change in the lives of our clients. We have the opportunity to work with individuals and families. We can bring this information into whole communities. I, for example, work with tribal communities around food and culture revitalization practices, how to integrate these methods into mental health treatment programs, addiction recovery programs, certainly schools. I've had a number of students who've gone in and advised school systems on changing the foods to enhance student focus, reduce ADHD diagnosis. We can apply this in clinical care in every disease category. We know, for example, autoimmune disease, which is diagnosed at high rates among women, more so than men, has a very profound mental health etiologic factor. High rates of autoimmune disease in women with histories of complex trauma. And again, it's bidirectional. Having a chronic illness is depressing, it's mood distorting, but also having mood challenges can exacerbate the function of the psychobiological and immune system. We can work in integrative private practices. For many years, I had a variety of multidisciplines work with me in my clinical private practice. We can bring this information to mental health agencies. You can deliver brown bag lunches, CE trainings. I've taught this for HMOs, taught this content for the federal government, for the Housing and Urban Department, where we were working to reduce addictions in middle-income and low-income housing in urban and rural areas in Massachusetts. There's no end of creative possibilities for bringing this content to both public health, community health, and private practice. Nonprofit agencies, insurance coverage, for example, in Washington State, where I've practiced, insurance pays for massage. Insurance has been developed to pay for some of these methods. We have the advent of medical marijuana throughout many states now. in the United States and the interventions that are available for chronic pain. We know that deaths due to opiate overdose have reduced by 30 to 35% in states where there's medical marijuana options for treatment of pain. So those of you interested in community and public health have lots of opportunities to share this knowledge. I am a big believer in research. I'll share with you a little later on the studies that I conducted that were funded by the National Institutes of Health, looking at polarity therapy, a form of body work to reduce stress and pain. And where funds for implementation and interventions and programs can be short, go for the research funding and do your implementation programs while you're gathering evidence for the efficacy of your work. And so there's lots of creative ways to fund what it is you want to do, what your passionate project is about. And then, of course, there's international work. While we are focused on the United States, many countries throughout the world are much further advanced in the application of these methods than are the United States. Germany, for example, the Scandinavian countries, and then, of course, many of the third and fourth world countries where traditional medicine is the major form of medicine practiced. So think about what you want out of this approach and how you want to develop a niche practice as we go through these modules. So in summary to our introduction, we've explored definitions in terms of reference. I've looked at the broad range of methods of the Brainbow Blueprint that we'll explore and that I'll share with you. We've talked about some benefits both for acute as well as chronic illness, some statistics on use of complementary alternative medicine, which is growing in the United States. We've looked at culture and CAM, and in our next module on ethics, we'll go into this a little bit more deeply. We've looked at specific interventions, some of the major ones we'll explore in their areas of focus, how to support your clients for motivation and adherence, and then the range of clinical opportunities that you can develop. And at the other end of this training, once it's over, I'm going to walk with you through more training opportunities and more practice and certification and what your next steps might be after this certification. Thank you.